In this presentation, I'll show the personal specialization project, which evolves around embedded device hacking. The main question is what actions can be taken to gain full control over the TLWR841N router using embedded hardware hacking techniques. The sub-question is what are common hardware vulnerabilities of embedded devices. The first research strategy that I used was community research. So I went online and I found a website that described some hardware vulnerabilities. The first one was patching into input and output. So let's say you have a device that has a button on it, but you're not happy with the sensitivity of this button. You could simply remove this button and replace it with something else that has a higher sensitivity. You could also replace components, which is closely related to patching into input and output. So let's say you have an electric bike and you're not happy with the motor. You could simply replace this motor with a stronger motor, which is more powerful and goes way faster. So the next thing is intercepting data using a logic analyzer. So this is something that I did, which I'm going to discuss later on in this presentation. You could also do JTAG hack stumping, which basically means that you could copy firmware from a device. So for prototyping, I opened up the router, then I found these pins, which is used for UART, which is a communication protocol. It's used for communicating with our laptop, which is really useful. So then I probed it using a multimeter and I found out that it's using 3.3 volts. The next step that I took was to put these cables on a serial converter and then connect it to these ports. So now it's time for a demonstration. So the first thing that we're gonna do is look for the USB device, which is here. Then we're gonna look for the device in dev. Which is here. And then we're gonna open up a screen using this device, using baud rate 115200, which basically means the speed of transmission. So now I'm gonna unplug my router and put it back on, so it boots up again. And as you can see, it's booting up. And once it's booted up, I'm gonna insert some commands. So right now I can insert some commands. As you can see, we have these folders here. Now we go to bin, and these are also some commands. So you could basically insert anything that you want here. So that's the part for the demonstration. So I spent around 5% of my time researching the types of topics that I found interesting. And it took me quite a while to figure out that I wanted to do this topic. Then I spent around 10% of my time on receiving and applying feedback. Then I spent around 10% of my time around documentation, around 25% of my time on community research, and 50% of the time on prototyping. So a cool idea for a next project would be to put another firmware on the router and have some commands in it, which makes me able to have a remote shell. But overall for this project, I think it went really well. It went easier than I expected and I eventually got the desired result. Maybe an improvement for next time would be to have a more scheduled planning. So in this case, I would have a more structured way of working, and also the teachers would be able to see what is expected for that week and if I'm living up to those desired planning. So that's it. Thanks for watching this presentation, and let me know if you have any questions.